In 1925, this small, kind of unassuming manuscript gets released in New York City. It wasn't written by some big-shot politician or a general, but by an artist named Florence Scoville Shinn. And what was inside? Well, it was a mental technology so potent it actually sent a quiet panic through the establishment. So what on earth was this hidden code? Let's dig in and find out. See, the powers that be couldn't just burn it or outlaw it. That would draw way too much attention. So they did something much, much smarter. They buried it in plain sight. They slapped a label on it, called it New Age nonsense, just to make sure no one with any credibility would ever give it a second look.
But you have to ask, why were they so scared? Because this wasn't about faith or some vague philosophy. No. Shinn had written a literal manual on the mechanics of reality. She was laying out a technology that threatened the very foundation of hierarchical power. How? By showing how anyone could bypass the whole system. What she was revealing was that if any single person could create their own reality just by using their mind in a very specific way, well, then they wouldn't need the banks, the institutions, or the permission of the ruling class anymore, would they? This was a direct shot at a system that's built from the ground up on control. Okay, so to understand this code, you first have to understand the prison. And you know, for the better part of a century, you've been unknowingly infected by what Shinn called the mass mind. It's like a virus of thought that's designed to keep you trapped. So what is the mass mind? Think of it as the collective consciousness of humanity, and it's broadcasting on one primary frequency: fear. It's the programming that tells you day in and day out that you have to fight for every single scrap of success, that life is just one big struggle and you gotta claw your way up the ladder to survive. But here is the secret they really don't want you to know. That whole struggle, it's a fabricated illusion. In fact, the struggle itself is the very mechanism that's blocking your miracles from coming through. Now, if you're feeling that little shift inside you right now and you want to help break this frequency, hit that hype button. It's a really powerful way to tell the system this message matters.
You're basically choosing between two different operating systems for your reality. On one hand, you've got the mass mind, which wants you stuck in the third dimension, you know, the world of heavy problems, dense energy and constant friction. But there's another way. We're setting a like target of 500 for this explainer, and look, it's not just a number, it's a collective signal of our shared intention to ditch the friction and choose the flow.
So how do we actually make that choice? Well, you have to stop seeing your mind as this, mystical cloud and start seeing it for what it is, a highly structured three-part engine. And the moment you understand the machine, you can finally get behind the wheel. Shinn mapped our consciousness into three very specific departments. First, you've got the subconscious. Think of it as the blind servant, the powerhouse. Then you have the conscious mind, the rogue gatekeeper. And finally, the superconscious, which holds the divine design for your life. Now, let's talk about the conscious mind, because this part is fascinating. It's your intellect, right? The logical part of you. But its primary job is survival. It's built to spot danger, not to create miracles. So it acts like this rogue gatekeeper that just violently rejects any possibility that doesn't fit into its logical, fear-based programming. But what's on the other side of that gatekeeper? That's where the solution is. The superconscious. This is the department they try to keep hidden. It contains a perfect, flawless blueprint for your subscribing ensures you're not going to miss the next key to unlocking that divine design. Okay, we've mapped the machine. We understand the problem. Now we get to the good stuff, the core technology, the specific two-step protocol to bypass that rogue gatekeeper and tap directly into the superconscious. It's a deceptively simple two-step protocol, but it requires a complete 180 from how the mass mind has trained you to solve problems your entire life. So, protocol number 1 is the law of non-resistance. And this is going to feel like it defies all logic. You stop fighting the problem. Why? Because when you resist something, you're basically screaming at your subconscious powerhouse, hey, this problem is real and it's powerful. And your subconscious, being the faithful servant it is, locks it right into place. Non-resistance is like a form of psychological jujitsu. You just sidestep and sever the energy cord that's feeding the whole obstacle. But you can't just stop resisting and leave a vacuum. You have to replace the problem. And that's protocol 2, casting the burden. This is a formal, deliberate transfer. Your conscious mind was never, ever designed to carry the weight of your biggest problems. You have to delegate it to the department that already has the solution on file. So here's the crucial part. This is a specific algorithmic command. You have to say it out loud with authority. I cast this burden on the superconscious, and I go free to be loving, harmonious, and happy. When you speak this with real conviction, you are physically interrupting the neural pathways of worry and anxiety. You're declaring the problem solved. But hold on, before you run off and try this, there is a critical warning. This is a precision instrument, okay? It comes with very specific operating instructions, and if you miss these, the protocol won't just fail. It can actually backfire. There are 2 really important rules. First, you have to be aware of the time lag. The solution is instant in the superconscious, but there's going to be a bit of a delay as it materializes in our physical world. If you start to worry, if you start to strategize, you've just snatched the burden right back, and it often comes back heavier. Second, never, ever talk about your miracle before it solidifies. Speaking about it is like letting all the steam out of an engine. You just dissipate the magnetic force you've been building. And this leaves us with one final and pretty provocative thought. This technology, it's not about hustle. It's not about force. It's not about being the strongest fighter in the arena of life. The game is not won